ようこそどうぞはじめまして
Hello everyone, welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. And I have a question. With the resignation of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe this week, who are we now supposed to blame for all the bad anime that encourages young people to have sex?
I mean, I think we can blame...
I'm sorry, who's that, Hiro?
Satoshi Nishikori,
director of Darling in the Franxx.
Oh, okay, yes.
That's a potential candidate. I don't know if you guys have any other suggestions.
We can just keep blaming Abe.
Yeah, I mean,
True.
We could always just...
Yeah, forget Abenomics. The real legacy of Shinzo Abe is going to be anime about kids having sex.
Oh, so you mean anime, then?
No, nobody actually has sex in anime, Zig. Come on.
That's true. I'm gonna cast a wider net and just blame young people in general.
Yes. In doubt, blame the children.
Isekai readers.
That always works.
Yes.
It has never backfired to blame the children for society's ills.
I mean, look, if I want to get into politics, I better get some practice in, okay?
Yeah. That's apparently what you do when you're at the top. But, alright, well, good riddance there, I suppose.
Yes.
And let's move on and talk about some anime.
Oh,
to introduce everybody, I am Jel, and I am joined by Iroh.
Still here. Not dead yet.
I am joined by G.
Man, it's only 80 degrees outside today.
Compared to the past 3 weeks, it's downright nice.
I know, it's comparatively lovely. I walked outside for a couple minutes, and I did not instantly melt as I have the past few weeks here.
Spontaneously combust.
In sunny Los Angeles.
It's 70 and sunny here in New York, so it's like arguably nicer in my opinion. I like
no, that sounds cooler. No. I mean, I am half joking. 80 is still too uncomfortable for me, if I'm being honest.
Yes, it's lovely late summer day out here, but yeah. And we've got Zig. Before we forget all the intros here, Zig is back for 2 weeks in a row.
I wore long trousers for the first time in forever because it's really cold over here now.
Yeah, how what is the temperature in Fahrenheit? Can you convert it without checking?
I can't be bothered.
I actually did the math the other day. I think it's like 60s, maybe high 50s, which is like, for August, that's...
Yeah, it was 13 degrees C the other day, so like that's not warm, however you slice it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's like a San Francisco winter.
Fall's here early for you, I guess, but
What
anyway,
is fall?
Autumn.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm gonna put a bow on the exciting weather talk.
Yes.
And we can move along to our normally scheduled anime chatting.
Oh boy.
We're gonna get into some of the shows that we've been covering. As a bit of a programming note, you can all thank the NBA basketball playoffs for us cutting God of High School, as I had something to watch on Monday, and that broke the terrible cycle of me watching God of High School every week and dragging everyone into it. So
once Jel stopped watching, Iro and I no longer had to keep watching.
So you know, if you were looking forward to our continuing commentary on that show, sorry everyone, but we've moved on, I think, from that.
Yes, after 10,000 years, we are finally free.
It's time to conquer Earth.
All right.
We're doing Toko at the end.
And I also wanted to revisit a little bit of anime business talk before we get into our coverage. We had a couple of other interesting news items that came up over the past week or so.
I'm telling you, Jel, if this starts becoming a regular topic, I think we need to get ourselves a theme song, right? Like
I was
a jingle
definitely
for
thinking,
anime business time. You know, kind of like those like what was that genre
Yeah.
called? It's like called business pop or something. It's like the music that would play in like 80s like accounting software or some shit like that.
Yeah,
Sure.
having some kind of like musical bump or something over anime business talk to introduce that, yes, that would make sense. But we'll see. In busier seasons, anime business talk
is it just
may
hip
not
hop
be
beats,
a.
but with idle like over it, like.
No, it's
No,
probably
it'd
more like
it'd have to
lo-fi
be like
hip-hop
some sort
beats,
of-
but with like fax machine tones like laced over it.
Okay.
Yeah, some kind of like professional edge to it, right? But,
Yeah, exactly.
It's just Money by Pink Floyd.
Yeah. Well,
Getting
we
enough
are.
copyright strikes already.
Yeah, we already get enough copyright claims as it is, so we don't need to tempt fate even further with that. But anyway, let's talk about an interesting bit of I don't know if I would say news, but perhaps industry insight that popped up on Twitter, and this came from a director / producer Yoshitada Fukuhara, who is perhaps best known for, and this does make me question some of the legitimacy of these numbers, but best known for his work on the series Kimono Friends, which I'm pretty sure, looking at these numbers, did not cost this amount of money to make.
I mean, people were really into Kimono Friends at some point.
It was a very popular show for a while,
it was
right?
yes, it was successful after it started production, but it looks very cheaply made.
I mean, yes, that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, we should get into what he's saying first before we start to pick apart his statement.
Yeah. Well, I'm just kind of giving some context for where this is coming from, but he was mentioning. He mentioned some actual numbers on the cost of what it costs to make anime, and kind of saying how those numbers have been going up, primarily due to the increasing demand, or I guess also support of anime overseas. And interesting, he threw out some of the numbers that your average anime studio would get about 15 million yen, or $142,000 US for one episode of anime.
So before we go any further, I wish to point something out, which is, by Western standards, that is like an insanely low amount.
Oh yes, it is absurdly cheap.
Yes.
To produce like 22 minutes of animation, that is like unbelievable. So, I mean, we always knew that anime was produced much more cheaply than Western cartoons, which still outsource a great deal of their production to like the Far East. But just to make that clear, because that context is important, I think.
Yeah, and we can get into some more context and kind of thoughts on what this all means But as far as the cost, that's kind of the one per episode cost, which if you times that by 12 is 180 million yen, or 1.7 million for a 12 episode series. Again, that sounds like a very low number when you consider the amount of people it takes to make an anime.
Because it is a very low number.
Yeah, and he mentions that obviously that's an average, and again, I don't know how much insight he has to come up with that, pull that number out of his hat, but obviously some are going to be higher than others, and he mentions that some anime might be pushing up to 190,000 an episode, and that obviously if it's a bigger studio, or they've had more money, more success, then that could be higher or whatever. But he's mentioned too that that should in theory open up the ability to attract new talent and those kinds of things. But as far as the big question here is always, as more money's coming in, is that getting handed down to the the actual rank and file animators?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not, but he doesn't get into that part of it. That's kind of I'll link Crunchyroll had the article which translated all his tweets and everything, and they kind of mentioned that.
I do find this note interesting that he thinks in the future more and more studios will be focusing on like the copyrights they own specifically. It's like he specifically called like Toei and KyoAni, I think. where like they can
keep mining that.
They can keep more money, I guess, by working on the things that they own.
Yeah, I've
instead
definitely
of outside properties.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that sentiment growing with some studios. Is like not even just like doing more anime originals, but like trying to retain at least IP rights to the stuff they create. Like, you know, yes, like the studios they mentioned. This reminds me of an interview that was published, I think a little bit, was it earlier this year or last year with oh man, I can't remember his name, but the I think like the CEO or president of Trigger, right? And they kind of said a similar
Wakabayashi.
Yeah, I think it was maybe Wakabayashi, where he was talking about how it's kind of a similar deal of like Trigger makes deals with publishers to try to retain IP rights, or at least like make sure that like the like the vague like directing board or whatever it is that's production board that's attached to every anime committee. Yes, production committee is that is filled with Trigger members, and I think that in its own way, this is sort of like Japan like beginning to realize that there is something to be said for like workers' rights and like the rights that workers are entitled to from their labor, like.
I mean, I think, if I might interrupt, G, I think that there's another factor at play here, which is simply that anime is becoming, even in Japan, a more specialised niche product rather than a mass market thing. Like, audiences are down, a lot of anime are relying on, hardcore fans and merchandise sales to keep that up, and obviously I think that means that there is more attraction for specialised intellectual properties that are artist owned and created, and obviously that also appeals to the overseas audience as well.
Well, I mean, they are saying that there's more money coming in
yes.
because of the international demand.
Yes, I mean, my understanding is that, to comment on what Zig was saying, is that yes, like domestic viewership is either going down or the percentage is going down because of the increase in overseas consumption.
I mean, there's also, you could look at it domestically because the format is changing as people move away from traditional TV. But,
I mean, I think that's part of it, though, right? Like, that people are exploring different revenue streams and different ways of getting their product out there. And, companies are willing to pay. Look at the Netflix model. I mean, they've financed a number of high-profile, fairly high-quality productions. There's been some garbage as well, of course. But, they're definitely getting out there and putting money in.
Right. So, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what, I guess, creative implications that has. Does that mean studios continue to take even less risk? Does that mean we see more sequels as they're trying to, milk as much as they can out of their own, properties?
All right, Joel, hear me out here. There's a team of girl idols.
Okay.
And they sing and dance.
Sold.
All right, I got another one for you. A loner teen gets transported to another world.
No, it would never work.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm not finished.
Yeah.
And he gets a slave harem.
And he brought his cell phone.
Oh, shit. Damn. This is why we have you on the committee, G.
Wait. What if this other world was exactly the same as his favorite MMO that he was playing before?
You guys are killing me. You're actually killing me.
So, in all seriousness,
I was just thinking about Dragon Quest, but man, the MMO, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
in all seriousness, my thoughts about this are, for better or worse, cynically, like paying attention to, like, the industry that is more my area of focus, which is the games industry, is that profits have only gone up for the games industry, right? Like, the number just keeps going higher, and the general consensus is that those benefits, surprise, surprise, actually do not, in fact, trickle down for the most part.
Yeah, weird.
And so the idea that anime studios will be able to request higher budgets, because of, just the increased demand, and I guess cynically, I'd like to hope that that those profits are more spread out. I mean, my understanding, looking at like the numbers, is that the disparity between between the wages that a CEO makes and the employee makes in Japanese companies is not as extreme as Western companies, but it's still hard to tell how much that really applies in practice.
Right.
If that makes sense.
When you apply more money to it, is that just going to make the gap bigger?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause that's what happened. That's what happened in the West, right?
Right.
Is that the video games make more and more money, and all that translates to is CEOs getting nicer and nicer bonuses.
That's not video games. That's everything.
I mean, yes, fair enough.
But
I'm mainly trying to
that,
tie this
right.
to like a similar entertainment market.
But now that we're injecting more money into anime, is it just going to be the same story over and over again here? It's hard to feel like it isn't, but
I mean, tangentially related to this, I think, like, I've never been entirely clear on the way that IP ownership works in Japan as it relates to anime companies. So, for example, Gainax do not own Evangelion, even though they were the studio that financed and produced it.
Correct.
And I've never quite understood how that works.
Well, didn't that have a lot to do with the whatever legal mess happened with Anno trying to bail them out more so than your standard IP ownership in Japan?
Even before the Anno business, like, I mean, Ava was a weird situation because it was. I mean, my understanding is it is a show that nobody expected. I mean, of course, I think they hoped it would do well, but it is a show that nobody expected would be as big of a deal as it ended up being.
I mean, for years there were rumors it was a tax write-off, right?
Oh, we know Gainax doesn't pay taxes.
Okay, yes.
But
and we can say that now because it's been legally proven.
Yes.
So, again, we are not legal experts. We are certainly not anime businessmen, but my understanding is that the traditional method is like the studio. You have the studio which actually produces the anime, and then you have like the committee, right? The production committee,
yes.
Which is usually a like loose conglomerate of different companies with their own vested interests who are like co-funding the anime. So you have like the the music label who's there. You have
throw Pony Canyon in the beginning after the OP.
Right.
Exactly. You have like several of the companies who are investors. You have a representative from the studio and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of more the traditional method, and kind of what they're talking about here, I think, is more like. Again, it's hard to say how it works out in practice, but I think the idea and the hope is that either studios, try to pull a Trigger or a KyoAni or a Toei and just get like full rights to it, or at the very least they get to have more say on the production committee, which in turn gives them more ownership of the work as a whole.
Right. Okay. Well, just interesting little insight. I always like when we get like specific details and numbers about things that we normally never get to see.
Yeah. I mean, like, Japanese business practices are secret at the best of times, and at the anime industry, like, triply so. So it's always nice to get anything approaching hard data out.
Yeah.
I will also just point out, like, one last thing. Like, I don't doubt this guy is, like, if these are the numbers he's saying, I assume he is telling the truth about, like, these are the numbers he's aware of. But I guess it does, I mean, we did kind of briefly point it out, but, like, I'm looking at his Anime News Network profile, and it looks like he's, A, not worked on that much, but also, B, it's almost entirely CG productions. And so, like, I'm not sure necessarily how those numbers, do those numbers also apply to traditional 2D productions as well?
I feel like I've seen the approximately $150,000 per episode figure float around a few times.
I mean, like, I always remember hearing, like, the old adage of, like, oh man, like, Gurren Lagann cost $250K an episode or something, and that was a big deal at the time, or something like that.
Sure. Yeah, I would, like, the numbers he gave were, like, kind of weirdly specific, so, like...
Right, like, they're so weirdly specific, I don't assume he's lying. It's just that, like, how how informed is his information?
I don't, who knows what, regardless of what projects he personally worked on, who knows what information he has access to, right? So,
also the last two things I'll say is that his profile picture on Anime News Network is him in Iron Man cosplay, and apparently his blog is called Bazinga.
Oh,
Waypoint.
Sorry,
that's a deep cut for.
Yes, that's a pretty deep cut, but I just
those
have nothing to do with those have nothing to do with his expertise. But I just had to point those two out as things I noticed on this page.
I mean, I will say that it's notoriously difficult to get pictures of people who are involved in the anime production sometimes. Like, I feel like even some relatively high-profile figures...
It's going to be like the only thing that comes up if you do a Google image search of him is him in an Iron Man suit.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
I like how Yo Yoshinari's Wikipedia pictures him giving a thumbs up at the camera.
Right.
The classic thumbs up Yoshinari picture.
Next episode of the podcast, we'll rate and review Anime News Network profiles of various
sure
anime directors. That'll be a new segment when we have nothing to talk about. So, all right, let's move on to one other topic I wanted to mention, which I probably normally wouldn't have brought up, but given in light of other recent news surrounding Crunchyroll, we talked about last episode how AT&T is shopping them around, and we were talking about how they may or may not be doing these days. Crunchyroll announced new pricing, which is going to be a 3-tiered plan that you can pick different options. So I should mention, prior to this, there has only been one tier. Well, they've tried 2 tiers before, I think, a long time ago, but for most of Crunchyroll's existence, it's been one price.
I should also point out, by the way, that the multi-tiered model is only in the United States at the moment.
Yes, but I imagine they are probably going to be... They said something about, other regions will have other things, but yeah. I imagine they'll probably want to move in this direction.
But I just think that's an important disclaimer at the moment, at least.
Yes. So, in this new tier thing, you can continue to do the $7.99 a month, which is basically what they have now. But they are moving up to a $9.99 a month, which will offer offline viewing and 4 concurrent streams, which, first of all, I didn't know you couldn't concurrent stream, but I've never tested it. Or maybe that's something that they're adding in here. I don't know. But, you can do up to 4 concurrent streams, and then they'll have the offline viewing, which I don't think anybody knows for sure what they're going to do with this, but I'm assuming that's just going to be download within the app. It's not going to be hey, I can download an MP4 of this episode or something like that.
I mean, this very much is based on the Netflix model.
Right. Netflix and other video apps kind of do that.
And that stuff is all in the app, as you say.
Right. So primarily it's supposed to be for people who might not have an internet connection later after they've downloaded it, if they're
traveling
on a train somewhere or something, and you want to watch on your iPad, that kind of thing. Although I don't know if that's somebody's going to figure out how to hack that and make fan subbing even easier. But, the GLORIO blog does not officially endorse piracy of any kind. So.
Also, how much easier can it get?
Yes. And then finally, there's a $15 tier, which will get you up to 6 concurrent streams. So...
finally, I can watch all 6 East Coast shows simultaneously.
You have fun for the whole family there. Mom, dad, and all the kids and grandma can watch concurrently. And on top of that, there's some store discounts and other things that probably... Oh, there's a swag bag.
Their manga arm that was...
Well, no, that's already included
in
all of them. Yeah, they brought that... They merged that together a long time ago.
Yeah, they folded it into the main subscription.
Yeah. So that ultimate fan tier is the $14.99 a month. So just kind of interesting, because one of the points we mentioned last time was, is Crunchyroll hitting their subscriber saturation point? And if you're not getting new subscribers in at a high rate anymore. This feels like how can we continue to get more money, even more money out of continuing subscribers.
Yeah. This kind of feels like a weird situation because, like, I don't know, man. You describe those tiers, and I'm not sure I'm necessarily seeing.
I don't think there's enough difference between them. To be honest.
I'm not sure I'm seeing the value add. Like it.
The only, obviously, if offline streaming is important to you, then maybe that's an incentive to pay $2 more a month. That's not bad.
Fair,
but that seems like a kind of a niche case, I would think.
And like in a world which increasingly, we have mobile data, we have fast mobile data. People are used to watching things on phones and tablets and stuff like that. It's less of a big deal than it would have been, say, 5 years ago.
with America's terrible infrastructure, though, there are a lot of people out there that need that. So I think that's a valid thing. I don't know if it's, a huge, there's going to be a lot of people signing up for that.
It'll move the needle for some people, but will it move the needle for a lot of people? I'm not so sure.
And, if you were particularly, if you don't mind sharing passwords, if you have 6 concurrent streams and everybody splits that up by $15, everybody gets Crunchyroll for $2. That's, maybe not a bad deal if you want to split it up that way. But other than that, like, it just seems like kind of trying to find something, like, especially on the highest tier where they're like, oh, you can get the discount is terrible. It's $25 off a purchase of $100 every 3 months.
Yeah, the disclaimer just makes it sound a little bit desperate. To be honest.
Like even the 25 off of 100 is kind of lame because that's like a 25% coupon if you spend $100, and then like every 3 months is then like, oh, now you've reduced that to like 8% or something.
And
if you're regularly buying like $250 figures, though,
if you're spending $100 a month on figures and T-shirts, you'll save 8%. So
speaking as somebody who used to spend multiple hundreds of dollars a month on figures and stuff, like, having it be on a 3-month timer is kind of not that useful.
Really lame.
Yeah. Figures are a sucker's game, man. It's all you got to get in on Gunpla Coin. That's the hot market.
Buy gotcha crystals for your mobile games. I don't fucking know.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. If they gave me discounts on Grand Blue crystals, then maybe I'd be more interested. But, just interesting as we're kind of, I feel like we're in a transitional period here with Crunchyroll, and I'm kind of curious to where they're going to be headed with their originals initiative, with Sony and Funimation breathing down their neck, with the company up for sale. There's a lot of things going on. Like, is Crunchyroll, the Crunchyroll of today, going to look the same a year or two from now?
I also feel as well that in the last couple of years, Crunchyroll has become mainstream in a way that anime perhaps hasn't been for quite a while now.
Right.
They've invested a lot in advertising and a lot in outreach stuff, and I think it has paid dividends.
I will say, like, just based on my experience with quote unquote lay people, Crunchyroll is nowhere still like. Anything that's on Netflix will get 1 billion more viewers than Crunchyroll.
Right. I think if anybody is like at any level an quote unquote anime fan, they know what Crunchyroll is. But your average person who doesn't regularly watch anime or anything is still not really going to be aware of it.
I think that they're more aware of it than they. I think that they're more aware of it than they would have been again a few years ago.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're average person who only who's only watched like My Hero Academia, they might know Crunchyroll, but like
chances are they were probably watching that shit on Hulu.
Right. I mean, I think it's just like, yes, on a sliding scale, yes, I think you can say Crunchyroll is more mainstream now than it was, say, 5 years ago, but that market has also gotten a lot more crowded in the last 5 years.
True.
So I feel like, for better or worse, this definitely feels like Crunchyroll is struggling to to find something, because
I would not think that Crunchyroll... I would think Crunchyroll is doing very well right now, but perhaps it's a concern of, how is the market changing in the future, and how are things, like I said, have they reached that... Do they feel like they've reached their peak now at this point, and now they have to find ways to, diversify and
I
make
think the
other
difficult
money
thing is
other
that
ways?
Crunchyroll is, by its very nature, a niche streaming platform, right? Like, it airs anime and anime. That's basically it, right? Like, and when you have to compete with something like Netflix, for example, where anime is clearly not like the focus of Netflix, but for Netflix they can consider that a value add, right? Like they're banking on people who already have Netflix subscriptions, and maybe a new anime every season or two is enough to convince them to keep it when whatever live action they already subscribed for is not doing it for them. But Crunchyroll can't really do that kind of expansion, so...
But I think my concern, at least, is that because, the people who own Crunchyroll demand increasing profit and they demand increasing revenue, that Crunchyroll will have to try and become that, and I think that will be bad for the health of the business.
Right. Like, I don't think this move is because Crunchyroll is losing money. It's because the way capitalism works is you have to not only continue to make a lot of money, but you have to make more money than you made last year, or people get fired. So, you see this on practically every big company where they'll just, make stuff up for the sake of saying they tried something, like...
that's literally
Twitter,
the Netflix model.
like Twitter adding features that nobody wants, or that kind of thing, like, because they have to do something, because they're trying to, make more money than they made last year, and that's probably more so the situation here than Crunchyroll seeing any decline or anything. I think we kind of touched on last time. I mean, they have more subscribers than they've ever had. Anime overseas, as we were just talking about, is more popular than it's probably ever been. So it's how do you keep the needle going up, or at least prevent the needle from going down. So
I think my fear, at least, is not that Crunchyroll will go out of business. My fear is that Crunchyroll will be absorbed into a larger company, and then we will have an effective monopoly. I think, especially since the word is they were actively courting Funimation for that sale.
I don't know. When Crunchyroll and Funimation were hooked up together, that was pretty great. But...
Right, but they were explicitly not the same business. Then that's the thing. Like they were. It was a strategic alliance. Call it what you will.
Yeah, right. They were not merged together. It was a partnership, right?
Yes.
But I mean, the end result was I could watch both for the same amount of money.
Yes.
So whatever gets to that point, I'd be all in support of.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like that's a sustainable. They're kind of like oil and water at this point. It feels like so.
I also think that a huge amount depends on how the anime business within Japan wants to adapt and evolve over the next few years, because we're seeing a lot of the major streaming services, like Hulu, like Netflix, increasingly begin to rely on their own custom created content as a unique selling point, and whether anime continues to be produced in the same volume for television, or whether it does become a more a la carte thing that's made on commission, I think will affect how these businesses play out in the next few years.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will see. I can tell you, I will be staying at $7.99 a month personally. But hey,
with that subscription, we can watch The Great Pretender, right?
Yeah, maybe we can do a GLORIO group Crunchyroll account.
Press
we can.
account,
yeah.
We can just pass around the 6 streams, hand them out. But yeah. All right. Well, let's put the business talk aside then and get into some actual anime talk.
Finally.
It's only been 34 minutes.
I know, seriously. Y'all gonna cut into my Build Divers tangent.
Oh, we'll have plenty of time, I'm sure. But let's come back to Great Pretender, the London arc.
Yeah.
When we last chatted, you guys were halfway through. and you've now finished it, so we can kind of dig a little deeper into what happened. What did you guys did the last 2 episodes change your mind? Let's put it that way.
A little bit.
Your opinion.
I think that it is clearly a more like, it might sound silly to say low stakes when they're trying to swindle someone out of £30 million, but it definitely feels a lot more low key than the, super exotic swindles we've seen up to this point. And I kind of enjoyed that. I think that as something that's a bit smaller, a bit more character focused, it was a nice change of pace.
Sure. Yeah, I guess when you frame it that way, I could definitely see where that's coming from. I think for better or worse for me, I would say no, nothing has changed. I still like the show, but also it hasn't really done anything to I'm not saying that a show constantly must escalate with every episode, but the London arc was good. It was solid. It was satisfying to watch. Fucking, I forget his name every time. British McFuckface get his shit pushed in. That was very satisfying. Copeland or something like that. It was. It's always satisfying to watch the con play out, right? Like to see. To watch the Rube Goldberg machine play out, right? Like all the pieces fall in place.
Would you say it left you wanting more, though?
Yes, maybe that's. I
get what Zig is saying with having sort of the more personal, low key thing be a nice change of pace to a certain degree, but I kind of don't want that in the show. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
I can
guess
understand
for
that.
me, it almost felt like, oh, here we go again. This con will also serve as a moment of self-actualization for one of the members of the crew. Makoto will prove his worth to the group because of his unique brand of oh, he's sincere. He actually means it when he says these nice things. And that's almost a con in and of itself. I can appreciate those elements. And then, they fuck over the bad guy, but they don't fuck over the nice person who's adjacent to the bad guy. And yeah, it's, I mean, don't get me wrong, this dude was never meant to be a real threat, right? He was, this dude's small fry, right? He's I mean, he was a mark, right? He was always gonna get screwed over in the end.
I mean, he's definitely not a threat to the same level of the previous 2 who have been, very focused on physical violence.
Yeah, that's definitely one way to put it for sure, right? He definitely didn't have armed goons or anything this time around. But I think then the thing that actually maybe almost works against this arc is I never asked this question before, but this was the arc that actually began to make me poke a little bit at I don't want to say the believability, but certain aspects of what was happening here. How'd they get that castle? It's one thing to one thing to renovate a hotel room, right? And fill it full of
if you have those kinds of resources, why are you still robbing art
right,
dealers?
if you have enough resources to either A, rent a castle, or B, make a fake castle in the English countryside, yeah, why are you robbing people? Why don't you just build yourself an actual castle and live in it?
I mean, I feel like the unspoken rule of all of these con shows is that the people doing it aren't necessarily in it for the money; they're in it for the thrills, right?
Right.
Yeah, but I feel even fucking the Fast and Furious franchise at a certain point realized that Vin Diesel couldn't be in it for the money anymore because that doesn't make any sense. He lives in
Excuse me, G. It was never about the money. It was always about family.
I'm just saying he lives in fucking an LA suburb. Those are expensive, but not rob a fucking safe expensive. But like, so of course they have to introduce personal stakes, right? Like, now for Don Toretto, it's personal, right? Because like the thrill of getting the money back doesn't work anymore. And like, again, I know it's dumb to even poke at this, but it's just like, I guess in a lot of ways this con almost felt a little too like predictable. Like, they get the artist that's Cynthia's boyfriend or Cynthia's like old flame to like make a new fake painting, and then they hawk it off with like zero complications, right? Like,
you wanted something to go wrong.
Yeah, because my favorite thing about the LA arc to this, which is still my favorite of all of them, is that it all goes tits up, right? Like,
or at least it seems like it does.
Or at least it seemed to it, right? Like,
right.
it ends with a
fucking... At least they teased us.
Right. Like, at least, again, before it was revealed, no, actually it was all part of Lawrence Keikaku. He was in control the whole time. But before that moment, it was like, oh, fuck, there's a fucking, like, three-way, like, Mexican standoff with, like, the FBI and, like, the drug, the drug dealers, and, like, it's like, it felt exciting because it felt like, I think it's just way more exciting when the plan goes wrong in these kind of like heist, like con man scenarios. And
right, how do they deal with the curveballs and the plan and
right,
all that?
And so like the Singapore arc was like, again, maybe because it was the follow-up arc, I was like, oh, like, we already know Lord is in control the whole time. And now with this third arc, where not only do they reveal that Lord was in control the whole time, but Lord even arranged for Makoto to be in Nice, because he somehow, like, predicted that, like, Copeland and Makoto would be, by being in the same town, they would cross paths, and, like, he calculated that Makoto would accidentally sell the painting, like, underpriced, and that would force him to work with Laurent again. And it's like, wait, if you planned it that deeply, like,
yeah,
it's, I don't know, man.
I think
it's
this
just not...
is all going to depend for me on how the quote-unquote final arc shakes out.
Right, because this final arc seems to be, like, a full-size thing, right? So, like, and there's the
I think the next part is supposed to be just one big arc for the last stretch.
And, like, the end of this episode clearly hints at, right, like, Laurent has his own baggage, his own backstory, and we'll be getting into that in the next arc. And it's like, I swear to God, if your explanation is just, oh no, Laurent's got, like, a anime sister with, like, anime cancer disease or something.
That's what I said. That's what I predicted weeks ago.
And he's got to get the money to afford the surgery in America or something, like... I don't know. That ain't gonna work for me. Like, that's not gonna fly anymore. It's so,
when in
like,
doubt, go full Emoto.
Iro, what did you think about this arc?
Y'all kind of said it all. Like, I don't necessarily disagree with any of you, to be honest. Like,
yeah,
I think it is probably a little predictable, especially after the previous arc. I just don't think that's necessarily a problem if the final arc can pull together in a good way. Like, the middle of a show being a little formulaic as it explores the characters is okay with me. If there's a payoff, or like there's actual peril or something going on for the final arc, where the time spent getting to know them in this way is put to use.
Right.
I mean,
so before we get to speculating what's going to happen in the final part, I just want to say, from my end of it, I didn't really like this arc, and some of the things, aside from what you guys mentioned, it being kind of formulaic and predictable and whatnot, I really didn't like the whole Cynthia romance plot thing, which felt like a sappy romance movie thing to me.
Yeah, it was like
I kind of alluded to it last time, of like, why did they have to make it so, she's really just a normal girl that used to be a waitress, why can't she just, to repeat myself, be the, badass champagne guzzling, globe-trotting thief that we know her
right.
as.
Like, Fujiko Mine doesn't need a tragic backstory. She can just be a bad bitch who loves to rob people, and that's great. That works.
but they there was a lot of like bad romance movie vibes coming off of that for me.
I mean, I think the problem for me is that like they didn't even subvert it. Like, it is literally the like sensitive, soulful artist and like, you know,
there was no switcheroo there.
Spirited waitress finding love, and it's just like, because like they didn't even get into like what makes Cynthia turn to crime, right?
Right,
like,
and like that's supposed to be, this is her arc. That is supposed to be the heart of this story, and I did not enjoy that part at all. Because
like, I think for better or worse, like, at least as fucking ridiculous as Abby's backstory is, at least you sort of understand, this is why she becomes the person she is today. Right. Whereas like with Cynthia, it's like the last scene we get from the flashback is them just breaking up. But like,
I mean, it's supposed to imply that she has, her personality is just her putting on a front to hide what, you know,
sure,
whatever she's running from or whatever. But then
how did she get into crime in the first place, right? That was the thing I wanted to see, right? Like, so because with Makoto and Abby, we get to see how the circumstances of, like, for both Makoto and Abby, like, it's circumstances outside of their control that, for better or worse, force them into a life of crime, right? But for Cynthia, because we don't see that moment, it's like, wait, did she, like, get into crime after breaking up with her boyfriend? Like, that's it?
No, they never obviously say it. My feeling was the implication, because she was trying to be an actress, right?
Right.
I felt like they were implying that she obviously did not make it into acting, and that probably she realized she could use her acting skills for the life of crime that she's currently in.
Then I would have liked to have seen that instead.
Yes. I feel like they could have given us more of an indication that was the case. But you know, that aside, because and you know, that's kind of a big deal, like I said, because this was her arc. Like, that was supposed to be the emotional core of what was happening, and it really wasn't. And it just fell kind of flat for me on that end of it. On the flip side, and possibly a bigger problem that I have, was the ending. How Makoto flipped the real painting back to the guy.
Yeah, that.
And in general, I'm really disappointed with where they've gone with Makoto, because you know he's I'm cool with him just being like the well-meaning dork of the group, but like you know how in the first arc he did that one cool thing where he looked like he put something over on Laurent, and like he was like, okay, yeah, Makoto actually can get some stuff done here.
That was really good. Like, to date, that is still my favorite moment in the series.
Has he done anything cool since then?
No. Like here's the thing, right? Like, you ask, like, yeah, what does Makoto contribute to the Singapore arc? Like, other than pretending to be a mechanic, like, nothing, right? Like, and it's almost the same thing here with the London arc, right? It's like, for both Singapore and London, Makoto's job is to be the heart. And it's like, I don't want the heart in my anime about robbing motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Like,
when they reveal that he actually returned the real painting back to the guy, which still screws him over because of how much he paid for it, but screws him over less. And then they're like, oh, well, I guess we're not really art thieves, ha ha ha. And that feeds into the problem I've been saying every single time about, like, they're trying so hard to justify the actions of these people beyond what needs to be justified, and specifically with Makoto, like he hasn't done any of that. He hasn't done anything cool since the first arc, and he's literally just a nerd on the on the squad. He's just like exactly what he is, and that's disappointing and kind of annoying in the context of a show like this to me. So
right, like,
all right, can I offer a rebuttal after you're done with this?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think some of the points you raise are certainly valid. I think that the romance stuff is potentially interesting, but it does come off as very treacly and a bit completely saccharine
right.
is the word. It's tonally not the kind of place you want to be in for this kind of show. But I think, there's 2 points I would make. One is the entire premise of heist shows is that they are incredibly predictable. Like it's very much a genre where execution over originality counts, if that makes sense. And you can argue that the execution was not good, and I might be with you on some levels there, but I don't think a lack of originality is necessarily something you can hold against the premise, because again, the whole point of heist shows is that you go through the same motions with a slightly different twist every time. The other thing I would say about Makoto is that you say he's the heart. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think he's something much more important. I think he's the everyman, because although he's a con artist, he's fairly small time compared to these dudes, and I think he provides an important worldview that the audience can empathise with, in that he's amazed by the audacity and by the complexity of these plans as well. And when he looks like a nerd, when he looks like he's been outfoxed, that's kind of what he's there for.
But
I'm not talking about when he gets outfoxed. I'm talking about when he is, Mr. Bleeding Heart, let's give the real painting back. That kind of stuff is more unnecessary to me.
And honestly, even I would push back against the everyman thing. Like, I don't actually think these shows necessarily need, an everyman in that regard, right? Like,
yeah.
Because, like, I personally get tired of Makoto getting, like, awestruck every single time they pull off a ridiculous heist. Because, like...
he's been through a few of them now.
Right, because he's like that guy in, like, every battle shonen who's, like, just stands there on the sidelines going, no way, they did the X technique, I'm losing my mind! And it's like, okay, yeah, like, we get it, like, it's...
Shut up,
like,
Yamcha.
It's so, like, I'm just, like, I'm so done with that archetype, like, just, like, the...
Right.
Like the hapless everyman who gets dragged into the hijinks, but like has no agency of his own in the plot line. It's
yeah, and I would push back again on the predictability thing. I mean, obviously we all know they're going to pull the job off. That's never in question. But like, it's the thrill of like, oh, how are they going to get out of this mess?
Yeah, of course.
There was like none of that in this arc. It was like, I can't remember any specific incidences of, like, other than, like, Makoto messing up the first time where he undersells the painting. Like, everything else from there was fairly smooth sailing,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's kind of more what we're leaning toward. But,
sure.
As far as moving forward, if we are getting one big arc that will theoretically be focused on Laurent, like, I don't know. I feel like they could, pull it off if we finally, if we finally get some kind of, challenge to Laurent's, superiority in here. But, is it actually just going to be, like we said, he's got a sick little sister he's been doing this for this whole time, I could see that go either way.
I mean, I think the twist that I would be most interested in is, he's actually a scumbag. Like,
yes, I would love that.
I think that would be if
will he be the real? Will he be like the real villain?
Yeah,
and the
that's
rest
what
of
I've
the
been
crew
saying
is
the
gonna
whole
have to
time,
take him
right?
down?
Like, that's what I want.
I don't necessarily think that it has to be that he's the real villain, although that's certainly something you could do, and I think would be very, very like impressive. But I think the thing I would like to see is perhaps a more realistic exploration of why he is the way he is and what drove him to this. And I think, that could be naked greed, it could be, a need to control or something like that. But I think giving the character some edge would definitely be of benefit here. And I think whether you make him the villain or you just paint him in a poorer light, I think that would be the thing I would want from this final arc.
Yeah, I do think it's a real possibility it could end up being Makoto has to take him down, and that would be cool.
That's what I want to say.
Yes.
That's what I've been saying.
But I think it's not a guarantee that that's the route we're going. Let's put it that way. So, based on what we've seen so far.
I mean, alright, fine. Hear me out. Here's how we can fix the finale of Great Pretender. So Don Toretto's crew is like basically unstoppable at the end of Fast and Furious 4. Nothing can stop them, man. They're the king. They're the best street racers. They're the best robber guys. Han is there. Like, what could possibly go wrong?
I mean, like, Fast and Furious 4, I'm just going to say, G, Fast and Furious 4 literally ends with Dom in jail. Like, you can't say that they're invincible at that point.
I mean, every Great Pretender arc ends with somebody.
But they break them out at the break them out at the start of 5.
Yes, of course. But I'm just saying,
Fine,
like,
and Fast 5, they're like, you can't stop Dom Toretto. It's impossible. So what do? You have to introduce someone even more powerful than Vin Diesel, and who better than
The Rock?
The Rock. The Rock is now the villain of the Fast 5, right? And that is a believable opponent for Dominic Toretto's crew to face. And when they do eventually pull one over on The Rock, and he begrudgingly joins the crew, they're like, shit, now The Rock's a good guy. We need someone even more powerful to oppose him.
So you're saying...
Jason Statham, and he kills Han. It's like, that's the kind of escalation Great Pretender needs.
So what you're saying is you want Great Pretender to be Dragon Ball Z?
Yeah, fuck it.
Bring in your next villain, right?
Yeah.
Stronger, bigger and stronger.
In all seriousness, what I actually mean by this is I think we need, if whoever is the next Mark, they need to be someone who's actually kind of scary, right?
Are you saying we need Dark Laurent?
Either that or Laurent himself, right?
Yeah,
Laurent,
right.
the main villain, because that is someone I could believably be like, oh, fuck, how would Makoto defeat Laurent in a game of wits, right? We need someone like that. We need, all the other Marks up till now have been, dumbasses, right? They all get screwed over in the end. There's no tension anymore. We need someone who's like, I'm not going to fall for your tricks. Or even more obviously, pull up, a tab that says, you idiots don't even use fake names. You've called yourself Cynthia at 6 different points in this story. Do you think I wouldn't catch up eventually, right? I don't know. I just think that would be, the natural escalation at this point to, introduce some degree of uncertainty to the plot.
Right. Okay. Well...
Yeah.
I should note that the current block of episodes is available on Netflix in other regions outside of Japan now, as of the past week or two or something. So, clearly we watched all of this after that came out, and the next block is due out September 21st in Japan, Netflix Japan. So, I don't know if they're gonna dump them all, or if they're just going to break it up again like last time. I guess we'll see, but we'll keep an eye on that. All right, let's move on. I barely even want to talk about this show that much, but we'll touch on it real quick.
We got a couple of quick hits here, right?
I've gone from being bored with the show to hating it again.
There's no racing!
Episode 8.
Talk about your Fast and the Furious bullshit. Why doesn't this show have any racing either?
There's no racing in these 2 episodes. It's kind
episode
of impressive.
8. Episode 8. They continued to be into the whole Hototo revenge story, which ends with Kosami murdering a lot of people.
Well, maybe murdering. It's actually kind of hard to tell. I feel like
it's fine.
There's
they
no
are bad
blood,
guys.
So I don't.
They showed blood on one of the guys at least.
Well, yeah, one of them. Yeah, not the others.
And Hototo says in episode 9 that his revenge is complete, even though Kosami did it for him. So
also, even though random guy is the real guilty cigar.
Who could have seen that coming?
Yes, because big surprise, the mysterious driver guy that nobody knows anything about turns out to be the real Gil or something, right?
Yeah.
But point is, there was no racing, and that whole revenge, Hototo's whole plot line continues to dominate the story. And then, if you can think of anything else that you didn't want the show to do, it happens in episode 9.
Okay, so here's the thing.
If go ahead.
No, you're okay.
Yeah, if Appare Ranman had lived up to what it's meant to be in our hearts, that it most decidedly is not, episode 9 would be a perfectly fine episode.
Right.
I actually...
No, yeah, I hear you.
I have a soft spot for the bottle episode, which is let's mash these characters together and they get up to dumbass shit, right?
Right.
Let's have TJ get into a drinking contest with the lady friend, let's have the guy go get a haircut, and the barbershop's like, hey, can you go like shoot a bullet in my wall? Like, it'd be a great
Right.
souvenir. Like, I love that kind of like dumbassery, you know. But the problem is like that would be like a welcome respite in a show that had been about racing up till now.
Right. Yeah, the title of the episode is Short Break, and it's like, we've been taking a break every single episode.
Right, like,
we don't need another break. And they're like introducing like, let's get into the backstory of the announcer guy with the glasses. Like, no, we don't need any of this. It's what are we taking a break from? We have not actually been doing anything. So yeah, no, I hear you. Had this been an actual break in, you know, the non-stop racing action, it would have been fun to, you know, do the, you know, little slice of life vignettes with all the characters and everything. But because that's all the show has been up until now, it was just like not helping my opinion of the show at all. So I don't know if we have much more to even say at this point, other than that. But you know, that continues to be a huge disappointment. But hey, it's almost over, right? We've got three more episodes or whatever.
Something like that.
Yeah. All right. Let's move along to Gundam Build Divers Re, which actually finished this week due to the weird timing of with the COVID delays and whatnot. So, we had episode 25, 26. What did you guys think of the ending?
It was totally fine. I mean, I don't think it was particularly special, but it wrapped up at the plot threads. We got some fun cameos. You know, at the very least, they did not redeem the bad guy. They still blew him up.
Yes, I at least, yes. I did appreciate that for all our talk of fears, oh, they're just going to talk him down through the power of friendship. At the end, he's like, the hero is like, I hope you find peace in the next world, bitch. Blam! Blast the motherfucker.
Right. I mean, his data or whatever still reincarnates as a new digital baby, but
Right, yes, he gets reincarnated, yes, he gets reincarnated as an ISO baby. Which is,
you can't actually kill somebody in the kid show, right? But they did not redeem him. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Gundam Build Divers Re, it's a weird one. Like, it is.
I appreciate it.
Like, broadly, I would say it was better than I feared. Like, it's.
I mean, it was definitely an improvement over the last Build Divers, right?
Oh yes, without a doubt. Yes, like. Build Divers Re is it's probably by process of elimination the second best Gundam Build series in the franchise.
Better than Try, then.
Try has good fights, and that's literally it.
There's a few good character bits in Try.
The good characters in Try get their shit pushed in by the characters we hate, so by proxy, Try is a bad show. Sakai was robbed. Tryon was robbed. That's all I need to say.
He shows up in this last episode.
But yes, he does show up in Build Divers Re. Like, it's a weird one because, again, as you've heard us like talk about over the last like few months, Re-Rise is an interesting show. It floats legitimately interesting plot lines in its children's show framework about like about grief, about war. Honestly, yes, about war.
It's more of a Gundam show than any of the other Gundam builds.
Yeah, like it is the Gundam build that is probably the most about war and the costs it demands of innocent people, especially children, and it is constantly toying with these ideas in ways that tell me that like this is not accidental. Like, this is not like they accidentally stumbled into these interesting topics. They went into them wholeheartedly. But at nearly every turn, it would always take the safer path. The soft, land the softer blow. It would never, like, fully commit to, like the legitimately very interesting premise that it presented us with. And so it's like,
would this have been better if it was not explicitly a kid show as opposed to like more of a mainline Gundam?
I mean, the mainline Gundams are kids shows as well.
Yes, but you know what I'm saying.
Part of why we are higher than we might have thought on the show is because we had extremely low expectations going in, and then the first 10 episodes continue to lower our expectations with each passing episode, and then it pulled out like actually good stuff, and we were like, oh, now the gap between our expectations and reality demands we get tricked into watching another quarter of this show.
Oh yeah, no, like the most successful thing Gundam Build Divers Re has done is convince me to watch the next Gundam Build series. I mean, I was probably going to do that anyways because I'm a sick individual, but like
now your hope level is higher,
and that's dangerous.
Than it was.
That's dangerous. Like
your expectations,
you know,
are
like
higher.
after Gundam Build Divers, the first season, like my feelings were like, you know, I'd be fine if there was never another Gundam Build series ever again. Like I'm good. Like clearly the show has proven that there is no hope for this franchise. But because Gundam Build Divers Re actually does, by technicality, represent an upward trajectory, I'm like, what if they keep going with the interesting stuff they played with here in the next Gundam Build series? And that's a very forlorn hope to have, but like,
yeah,
it laid the foundation. It laid the foundation that this team that has inherited the Gundam Build series from the original staff, like, have some ideas about the series, and whether they always work or not, you know, they often didn't.
At least,
but
you know, we have a definitive season 2 that's better than season 1.
Yeah, we have proof. We have an example now. We truly do.
Yeah, that's a very rare.
And yeah, I don't know, man. It's fucking weird, man. And like this is not even getting to the fact that, like, honestly, the fights in the last couple of episodes weren't even that good. Like, there's some okay moments.
Really? So they're carrying on story.
Oh,
then,
dude,
huh?
no. Gundam Build Divers is carrying on plot, not action. Like in terms of pure action, this series might be the worst of the whole series. It is
good stuff though.
Third, okay, fine. Third, it is better than Divers, right? Because if nothing else, it does end with just a dude punching another dude with a fucking giant drill attached to his hand, which is always cool. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, yeah. By the standards of the Gundam Build series, yes, it was carrying itself mostly on the quality of its narrative. A thing I never thought I would say.
It did have Odom Tiger Knee, the turn X in the face.
Right, we didn't even get to mention that. Yes, like the villains. Right, they. The villains. You know, we were hoping for deep cuts. Well, we finally got some deep cuts. Like the villain busted out like its evil clones of like famous Gundams, and the theme of its evil Gundams team were all Gundams that use funnels. And for those of you not familiar, funnels are like semi-autonomous like attack drones that Gundams often use. And so they had they had the Thrones from 00, and then they had. I was like, well, who else would you have in your lineup of Gundams that are famous for using like funnels? And who better to show than the fucking Turn X? Sid Mead's motherfucking Turn X shows up to get its ass beat by Sid Mead's Wadam.
I mean, I'm going to be that guy and point out that the Turn X doesn't technically have funnels because they're all autonomous parts, but go on.
Yes, but my point is, I mean, but that's what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like, they could have just picked any old suit with funnels, right? But no, they picked, like...
Could have picked a Yagadoga or...
Right, they picked the weirdo funnel suit, like...
I mean, I must admit that when you told me that the O shows up in that thing, I kind of wanted to see it.
For like
that's the thing. That shows. I mean, it's like for 5 seconds, but that show's great about deep cuts. It always has been. Like when it matters, right? Like all sorts of weird, obscure suits show up. The O shows up fighting alongside fucking the Gun Cannon 3. The Gun Cannon 3, which has never shown up in an animated Gundam feature, like, it has always been, like, a drawing in a fucking magazine. That motherfucker shows up.
Nobel Gundam shows up.
Nobel
with a
shows
pair of
up,
giant
right.
scissors.
Yeah, like, which, to my understanding, is actually meant to be a deep cut to, like, this VTuber who's, like, a Gunpla VTuber or something.
Okay.
And, like, she, like, is a moe anthropomorphization of, like, Gunpla, like, nippers.
Oh.
And, like,
Great.
she uses giant scissors as a weapon.
Okay.
So, like, that's what my point is that they...
That's a hell of a sentence.
Right.
Carry on.
There's a Better Man reference in
There
that
was
episode.
a fucking Better Man reference, that is true.
Right, like, not even Gundam, just, like, the overall Sunrise umbrella, like, dude literally says, I have control.
I have control, right.
Yeah, like, when that show wants to, it can go that way. It's
Nobody
just,
gives a shit about Better Man.
I feel like a much more effective Better Man reference would have been if it just sucked.
Well, it did that too for large portions of it, but
I don't know.
I mean, you had some fun. It
some
sounds
fun.
like,
Yeah,
which
like,
is more than
the
I was
idea
getting off of
of-
the previous ones.
The idea, because, like, the penultimate episode is them doing their charge on the villain or whatever, and they beat him, and then he's like, well, I'll just invade your world! And he goes through the portal or whatever, and just every player of the game or whatever is just waiting on the other end, like, sick, the new raid.
right, it's very good. Like, to
Let's
tie this to another
just
show.
keep shooting these patties.
Right. Yeah, like, to tie this to another show, we'll discuss this podcast. It does a very good bit where it ties into, oh, right, like, you're trying to invade the world of an MMO, so of course the gamers are just going to treat this as hashtag content. Like,
I mean, like, to me at least, like, I appreciate that's funny, but also, like, I'm so tired of the, like, virtual reality game stuff. That's kind of just a turn off in general. Like,
I mean, that's been our issue with Gundam Build Divers since season 1, is that we never cared for the virtual reality. I mean,
But this series, most of it has not been that.
Right,
It's
right.
been on the furry planet.
right, because of
Yeah.
the twist of the furry
Right,
planet,
yes.
like, it's not really an MMO show. Except for the times when it lets itself be. And it's in all fairness, the times when it lets itself be an MMO show are when it allows itself to have the most fun, weird, deep cuts, right? Because, it's an MMO. Anyone can look like anyone, and anyone can field any mobile suit they want in this game, so this is when we can have our fun, weird cameos.
Right. Okay, so, I mean, overall opinion, much higher than, huh?
exceeds
than the previous ones.
expectations.
Yeah, exceeds
it sounds
expectations.
like it.
Yeah.
And have they announced the new one yet?
No,
or...
they've announced like bonus web OVA series for divers.
It'll happen.
Okay.
They did the same battle log stuff for fighters.
Yes.
And they announced they're doing some of those for divers.
Yeah, and if the trend holds true, then these one-off OVAs will basically serve as like a send-off for the current series before they introduce whatever is the next Gundam Build,
Umbrella.
Insert word here series.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any numbers to back it up, but I feel like I saw a lot more buzz on this one than the last Divers series, so I don't know. I'm
it's
sure
weirdly
it's
popular. Like, I've
doing
talked,
well.
like, amongst, like, mecha... I gotta be honest, I have a little bit of beef with the mecha fan base because, like, they're, like, weirdly high on Re-Rise in a way that I don't understand. Like, I enjoyed aspects of Re-Rise, but I've definitely seen some people out there be
desperate for mecha content.
I think they might just be, because I've definitely heard people be like, this is the best Gundam series in the last 10 years, and I'm like, you're crazy. G-Reco came out in 2013 or 14 or whatever.
G-Reco was excellent because it was bad.
No, G-Reco's good. I don't know what you're saying. Like, I don't understand these words.
we're not opening that conversation on this episode of the podcast. But
I refuse to ever answer this biased question of is G-Reco good or bad. I believe it transcends such mundane quantifiers.
Those are not the correct words to describe.
Yes.
All right. Well, I guess you guys have something to look forward to now. You're not ready to go that far yet.
We'll see.
All right.
But besides, what we really got on our plate next is fucking Hathaway's Flash. So
let's not get into that right now.
Yeah. Gundam. There's always a Gundam on the horizon, but
there's always a new war, Al.
All right. Let's move along to DECA-DENCE, which continues to be pretty good.
Yeah. Hell fucking yeah.
Although it's good in kind of a different way these past few episodes.
Yeah, I feel like, because I'm basically only watching this in Appare Ranman, if we're being honest at this point, and I feel like there's some kind of parallel you could draw as far as like, or lessons you could learn on how and how not to make you care about the characters and what's going on. Where I feel like Appare Ranman spends, I mean, I won't get into like every little detail, but as Appare Ranman is trying so hard to make you care and spends so much time explaining with the characters and everything, where, you know, where to the point where we've neglected the actual race and the actual action of the show. And I feel like DECA-DENCE gives you like just enough to kind of make you care about what's going on, but, you know, still keep the plot moving and still keep you interested in what's going on. But yeah, I mean, we did get, I guess I was specifically thinking that when we got to the part where Kaburagi comes back in his new body and he meets up with Natsume, and she kind of has her like little breakdown. And
also, I'd just like to point out that his new body looking like a bootleg version of his old body, like it was the closest you could get in the character.
The closest he could make
is extremely good.
I did enjoy that. Yes, yeah. I didn't bring up last podcast, but I did want to kind of like speculate about what Kabu's new body would look like. Like I was almost hoping that like because he's using somebody else's bootleg account, it just looks like total fucking shit or something, or like totally different. But
mash the randomizer button on the character creator.
Right. But anyways,
I was thinking, is he going to be like a woman or something?
Right,
like, is they just go in a completely different direction?
But let's talk about the best part of that episode, is which Kabu gets politically radicalized by his waifu.
Yes, that's ultimately, I guess, what I was getting to.
Kabu is going to start a party. A communist party. He's gonna tear down capitalism for his waifu. Capitalism made Kabu's waifu cry, and thus he cannot tolerate capitalism to live.
Yeah, they have that super dramatic animation.
Oh, it's so
crying.
good.
Where he's like powering up,
clenching his fist and staring at the heavens. He's gonna tear it all down. In all seriousness, I actually really did love that moment, because Natsume's breakdown is not just like it's not just her revealing a moment of like emotional vulnerability. What it really is like, and again, I might be reaching here, but ever since the director did his like Reddit AMA where he said, "No, this show is definitely about capitalism," I feel like I have a little bit more leeway to make this. I
feel like if you watch these past couple of episodes and come to the conclusion it's about anything other than capitalism, you might be a bit dense. You know?
Look, man, I think the same crowd that says Metal Gear Solid isn't political are the same people who say DECA-DENCE isn't about capitalism. So.
Right, you're in denial at that point, right?
Yeah, but her breakdown is specifically because she feels she's not valuable enough, and I feel like that is like the very core of like the very specific type of like modern millennial existentialism that is set into our generation specifically because of capitalism, right? Where your self-worth is defined by your value, your productivity to the system. And that's what Natsume is killing herself over, is that she feels she's not valuable enough, that she's not worth enough to the DECA-DENCE. And that is why she has to push herself so hard, because she feels like she can't make a difference in the system otherwise. And that's a really good reason to have an emotional breakdown. I feel like it really...
It felt earned, you know, it felt in character with what we've seen from her.
Right. And I think that moment really clinched it for me. I was like, oh, this show knows exactly what the fuck it's talking about. Right. And
I mean, I'm just going to say, like, leaving aside the possible political connotations of what they're going for, I just think it has really strong characters which make those moments feel natural and earned, you know. I think that they've done a very good job of establishing what kind of people the characters are, and you know, that pays dividends because their reactions feel authentic. And, you know, that is just the basis of good writing. You know, there's no two ways about it. You know, it's just good writing.
It's shocking how rare that is.
Yeah, I know, right? Weird.
Yeah. And it seems so. I mean, I know it's not, but it seems so effortless when it actually happens. Like, it feels so natural, but yeah, surprisingly a rare thing. But yeah, that kind of gets into episode 8, where Kaburagi starts organizing his workers' party for the revolution. And
I mean, can I say something about episode 7 first before that?
Yeah, sure.
I think that, you know, this is the first time that we've had an episode which is set almost entirely within the quote-unquote real world, the cyborg world, and I think it's a really good style contrast, just of this like dirty, grotty prison filled with these weird misfits. And like, I kind of wish that they hadn't gone back to DECA-DENCE at all, even for the short time they did, because it feels like a second show started in the middle of the show, and I mean that in a good way, you know, like, it was such a strong stylistic shift that it felt like the danger was real, and like Kaburagi was in serious trouble in quote unquote the real world, which was really, you know, I think was a really effective way to do it.
I mean, I've already made my opinion clear last episode that I think the exact opposite of that. But yes. Well, actually, well,
come around, Joe.
No, if we look at episode 8, I thought that was actually a pretty good balance of being in the cyborg world, and then they go into DECA-DENCE to steal the body, right?
Yeah.
Like, I felt like that was kind of a good balance of getting just enough of both worlds that we needed.
Yeah. I do think, for better or worse, episode 8 definitely felt to me like a setup episode, right? Of like, we're rallying the troops, you know, we're going to give them speeches about how these shit-eating shit miners living in their shit need to rise up, because otherwise they'll just be eating shit for the rest of their lives. Was very good.
Rise up, pieces of shit.
Yeah, the joke about what's in the fucking the
stealing
the body
thing,
and
putting in the like, cover,
robo dildo sex toy thing or whatever was a pretty good payoff. Yeah, that episode definitely felt to me like, we're getting the pieces in play for, like, you know, the final sprint in the last few episodes.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it was like, I mean, it wasn't, I don't think it would be anybody's favorite episode, but it handled the necessary business in a way that was, you know, good enough to watch, I suppose. Yeah,
totally.
But, yeah, and we set up, I can't remember the name of the commander guy of DECA-DENCE, like, his position on what's happening.
Minato, I think.
Yeah, Minato, what's going to go on with that. The one guy who you could tell was going to double-cross them at some point is definitely going to double-cross them.
Yeah. I mean, it is not the most subtle use of the mole ever.
Right.
Yeah. And we kind of have the setup of, you know, Kaburagi and Natsume are going to be the only two that are going to be able to go in and attack God. So, you know, we'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, it sets us up for, you know, whatever's going to happen in the last couple episodes. I hope we get some really, like, ridiculous escalation. Like,
I mean, I think
I don't know if we need to go to space, but
I mean, they've got something in space, right? Like,
maybe we need to go to space.
I think the thing I want to see is, like, the tankers and Natsume invade the cyborg world, like,
we need to see
and just
two worlds clash.
Yeah, like have that huge clash of styles. That's what I want to see.
Right. I mean, I feel like that moment is coming.
Maybe it's the real Kabu.
Yes. I mean, that's such an obvious payoff that I feel like it has to happen.
Right. Like, G, you mentioned last time when Natsume inevitably sees the real Kaburagi, is he going to be like a real robot, like in the DECA-DENCE art
right,
style?
like is he going to be shaded realistically or drawn in the more normal anime style? I'm really curious, because
that would be pretty cool.
Because, like, I feel like there's so many possible ways they could go about it, and yeah, I think I mean, again, I think this show's done a very good job of like if we're talking about shows that, like, you know, to compare this to, like, the, you know, like, I think it goes without saying that, like, this season generally, like, DECA-DENCE and, like, Great Pretender have been the most solid shows this season. And I feel like in comparison, like the thing DECA-DENCE that is working for me very well is the constant escalation, like is the like constantly like changing status quo of the characters.
We're making progress. We're going somewhere,
and that makes it very exciting to me.
I mean, DECA-DENCE has the advantage of being like a super unique premise. Like Great Pretender is a very stylish, very well executed spin on a very old set of tropes, whereas DECA-DENCE is pretty unique. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Right. And it has a plot that lends itself to that.
Right. Yeah, I'm not saying. I mean, I know I'm comparing apples and oranges here, but I just mean that, like, for me personally, like, this kind of escalation is like, this is why I consume fiction.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm still enjoying that show at least, so I'm looking forward to where we're going with that. But I guess let's get back to some bad things before we wrap up here. So, where are you guys at with Japan Sinks 2020?
Episode 8, and they probably could have skipped the entire cult arc, considering the direction the show goes.
Yeah,
it's like
so.
Go ahead.
Oh no, you can go here.
Just like after we escape the whole cult and all that, like we just end up at the docks. Where, you know, people are being evacuated from Japan, and it really is as if the cult arc did not happen at all.
Never even happened. Like, zero consequences.
Let us never speak of this again.
Like, sure, the old man is not there anymore because he died at the cult, except also a thing happens where, narratively, it would have been where they offloaded the old man. Because, apart from the official ships evacuating people that leave, they also find a barge with nothing but pureblood Japanese nationalists who only let on pureblood Japanese.
Yeah, we're talking about dudes waving like the old school Imperial Rising Sun flag.
Oh well, at least we know what happened to Shinzo Abe.
Well, let me tell you, you'd be really happy to find out what happens to that ship then.
Right.
It sinks, I'm assuming.
Oh,
it doesn't just sink, it explodes.
Excellent.
Yeah, but like, that just would have been where they offloaded the Japanese nationalist old man, presumably.
Right. Yeah, because they don't take the rest of the family because the mother is Filipino, so the kids by nature are biracial and like.
Just to what
here's
end?
The thing. Episodes 7 and 8 in a vacuum are, like, you know, ignoring the production issues.
Right.
Episodes 7 and 8 in a vacuum are actually fairly solid post-apocalyptic fiction.
Right.
Or not, you know, not post-apocalypse, but like
crisis,
crisis fiction, right? Like episode 7 is all about, like, you know, this general, like, needs of the many versus needs of the few, like, sort of thing, right? Like, They can only... For some reason, the entire Japanese Navy only has one whole ship through which to evacuate people with, so, like, they have to be very choosy, right? And
there's a lottery for your ID number to see if you get to go on. Oh, but you're a track and field star, so you have a special exemption as a talented young person.
Right, like, they prioritize people who are, like, will be good for the future of Japan and all that stuff, right? So, like, the main... girl, the teenage girl whose name I still don't fucking remember. Ayumu, yes, she gets on board, but then, like, she somehow retroactively realizes that turns out her mother has been on a pacemaker this whole time, and the batteries in her pacemaker have been slowly dying throughout this series, and so she decides to get off the ship and run back because she'd rather, like, stay with the family.
Yeah.
But, like, they also keep playing into this plot line of, like, she got a cut on her leg in episode 1, and it has been clearly shown to be getting more and more infected with every passing episode. But, like,
oh god,
for some reason she doesn't get any attention for it.
She has never brought this up, even when they were safe at the cult for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, she never told her mother, never told the rest of her family. She has kept it a secret from everyone but herself this entire time. And this is not a, oh no, I got bit by the zombie situation. This is literally, I have a festering wound that needs medical attention, but for some reason, I will keep it a secret. And so that just keeps popping up as like a latent subplot, like for some bizarre reason.
Oh, they're probably gonna have to like amputate the leg or something so that she loses her one valuable thing.
Right,
about being
that's
a track
like
and field star, right?
Yeah, like that is what I assume to be the case. Either that or she just straight up dies. I mean, a wound that's gone that infected, I feel like, I don't know, your odds ain't looking good, but
I feel like that very specific plot thread of her being a track star would feed into that. But
so she runs off the boat, reunites with her family. Then another earthquake happens, and so they have to flee the docks.
Erupts.
Right, Mount Fuji straight up fucking erupts, and then they're trying to like find shelter. And there's the ultra nationalist boat which won't take them, and then the cool old fisherman boat who's like, "Nah, I'm not a racist shithead. Get on board." But then both of those ships sink. Both of those ships sink basically,
and they're stuck on a life raft.
Right, and so episode 8 is basically your classic, like, Lost Adrift episode where they're like, trying to stave off starvation and dehydration and
punch this bird till it vomits up all its fish and then eat those fish.
But not the bird for some reason.
Yeah, sure.
And then they somehow reunite with the mom, like, because they got like lost in the scramble, so it was just like the kids. But then the mom found them, and they find a boat. But oh no, the boat's stuck because of debris, and she's a professional swimmer, so she's gonna go swim down to like loosen the anchor or whatever's caught on it. But also her heart's failing, so she manages to loosen it, but then drowns before she reaches the surface, and it's all very. It's very sad.
Harrowing.
It's very
disaster. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's just the kids.
And and her classmate guy who has a hole in his shoulder from debris,
but is somehow like physically capable enough to row a boat.
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
Again,
dude.
like the 7 and 8 in a vacuum are like totally like fine plot wise. Like they at least follow the premise. It's just like,
but in the context of whatever,
right? It's just like
you just left the
like,
cocaine
it feels like
Street
too little,
cult.
too late, basically.
Right? Like it's just like nothing in the cult made sense because nothing in the cult contributes to the greater plot. Like none of the characters learn anything about themselves after the cult. Right? There's no self-actualization. There's no character development. There's no like gaining of knowledge or resources from the cult. Like, it's. The characters that were introduced in the cult arc die with the cult arc. Like, it's literally just a black hole for this whole show. And the show, like, here's the thing. Even at this point, I don't think I feel as strongly as Artemis did about, like, just her sheer contempt for this show. But, like, if the cult arc did not exist, I think I would just be like, oh, this is like an okay 6-episode OVA. Like, it's not amazing, but it's not terrible. But it's in the context of, like, the whole, like, artifice of what Japan Sinks is. That it's we say it every week. I would love to be a fly on the wall or attend the, like, anime post-mortem where...
And there's still 2 episodes left. Who knows what's going to happen?
I assume Japan will fully sink.
Yeah. Well, if there's one thing I did learn from the last arc is that if you put cocaine in your episode title, the YouTube algorithm does not like it.
I mean, shit, it might even be if their algorithm detects you said the word cocaine.
Oh, yeah, who knows?
So you're saying we shouldn't say the word cocaine?
I'm saying we should not say the word cocaine.
I think we had to say the word cocaine because that is, like, core to our values at the GLORIO blog.
Yeah.
Let me repeat that. Cocaine is core to the values at the GLORIO blog.
Well, what about Street Fighter?
And Street Fighter, of course, but they have to be done in tandem with each other.
How else are you going to parry Chun-Li's kick super move?
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll finish that one off soon enough, but let's move on.
Speaking of shows with episodes that have no narrative stakes and add nothing to the broader plot.
All right, so I put Digimon Adventure back on the list here. Previously, you guys were saying it was, like, average, but I've heard you guys saying that it's just bad. So has something changed, or...
There's a couple of things.
Okay.
I think the first thing is the technical quality of the show has just diminished to such, like, a comical degree. Like, we're getting, like, I know it's shocking, isn't it? A Toei animation show that, like, went into the shitter after
Toei either looks great or looks like shit, right? Like, there's a zero middle ground, I feel like.
Yeah, that Brawly movie sure looked good.
Yeah.
but just, you know, we're getting like big showpiece fights that are composed entirely of like padding still frames and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like there's not even any stock footage that they can fall back on, because the stock footage is panning still frames.
Right. Like the original show, yeah, it repeated the same as stock footage every single time they used an attack, but it meant that it at least looked okay every single time they used the attack.
Right. Are they using the same still frame, or at least getting a new still frame?
I mean, like, it's
broadly different, but
there's like, you know, there's occasional flashes that show that somebody who cares is still working on it, but for the most part, you know, it's very difficult. And more than that, you know, it's not just a technical question, it's just that the animation is very lifeless. You know, there's no, even when it's technically competent, there's no sort of attempts to give people character through movement or animation or anything like that. You know, it's very static, the choreography is very boring, and it's, you know, there's just no pizzazz to it. And, you know, this is a kids show that's entirely about the monsters fighting. If there's one thing you need to do, it's have interesting fights, and they're just not.
Yeah.
You know, and also, like, almost all of these episodes have been fights, because, you know, and the second thing is just that, you know, plot wise it's just a mess. You know, like they're going for like some of like the higher level power-ups almost straight out of the gate, which, fine, you know, it's a new show, you have to escalate, but there's no character reason for these power-ups to happen. You know, nobody learns anything, the characters don't have epiphanies, they don't gain new powers, they just sort of get these upgraded forms out of nowhere, and as a result everything is very flat, it's very anticlimactic, and there's no real reason to care about why these things are happening.
I don't want to be the old man yells at cloud. But like when these same tiered power-ups were being unlocked in the original show, it was because the characters were gaining character development and like expressing the emotions or admirable characteristics they're meant to represent, which, you know, allows their partner to become more powerful. And then in the new show, it has been like 5 straight episodes of, we are in peril from the new bigger enemy. We're gonna run around for 15 minutes being in peril, and then we're gonna power up even harder and punch them in the face.
It's, you know, there's just, you know, again, like, as Ivo says, you know, I don't think that the characterization in original Digimon was like, we're not talking some sort of incredible character piece here, but there were honest attempts made and, you know, interesting things done to try and justify your standard power-up parade. And here there's none of that. You know, there's no attempt at fleshing the characters into anything other than like the very basest archetypes. In fact, the characters are considerably worse than in the original because they've basically reduced them to like one-note characteristics. So like Yamato is broody, Joe cares about exams, and that's like the extent of their entire character. And it's very shallow and depressing and just you know, bad writing generally.
How much more of this is left?
God knows.
Running.
There was a listing. I think it was in like a Korean listing or something that had it listed at 66 episodes.
God.
Oh my God.
And you're at episode what?
13, 14, 15 maybe?
Oh man. Well, you guys are in for a ride, I guess.
Yeah. Like it's very like the last episode was just absolutely appalling. Like, and I say that as someone who is perhaps a little bit more sympathetic to this show because, you know, unlike Ivo, I do not have such a sentimental attachment to the original. You know, I definitely still have an attachment to it, but
right. But you did not watch it when you were 10.
Yeah, it was very hard to defend the last episode as anything other than like a hack job, and I don't say that lightly, but it was just absolutely appalling.
All right, so we're still on. Go watch the old one instead.
Yeah, the old the old one's a pretty good show.
Holds
like,
yeah. All right. Well, we'll. I don't know if you guys are going to make the whole 66 episodes or whatever.
Oh, of course we are. Don't be silly.
If we watch Appmon, we can.
Right,
Appmon was better than this.
You're right,
Like,
and I hate that you're right.
We'll keep checking in periodically,
Sure.
I guess, to see if it gets any better.
Look, man,
but...
we all got our burdens to carry. You know, like some of us watch Gundam, other of us live with Digimon.
Some of us
I
do
guess.
both.
Oh yeah, I really were stuck in both. Right? That's all right. Well, let's wrap things up with some more Kamen Rider talk. Kamen Rider Zero-One has ended.
It has.
As of this morning. We're recording on Sunday. You guys just barely fit that in?
Yeah.
We were aided by an early release by the subgroup. Thank you very much, guys.
Did Aibo save the day?
So, firstly and most importantly, the Aibo survived, and in fact, there are now lots of Aibo.
Oh, did it reproduce?
Oh, did Aibo get it on with the
No, I think
girl Aibo?
I think the implication is that, like, dude who owned Aibo went into business making Aibos.
Okay.
But, I think we said last time, that a lot of extremely good stuff was happening, but we had concerns about how it might wrap up. And I'm happy to report that it wrapped up pretty well, in fact. Like, I think, it was a bit messy. There were definitely, some loose ends which weren't particularly well resolved. But that kind of describes the show as a whole. But it was ambitious, it was character focused, it was interesting, it was nicely shot, and the fights were good. And I think overall, it was a really, really strong piece of work. And I think, despite all the production trouble and stuff, I think this has been the strongest Kamen Rider show in quite some time.
I'm curious. How much of an impact did the COVID thing have?
They cut it short by 6 episodes.
Huh. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as in show, did they have to film it any different?
I think they said they were.
I mean, I was going to ask. Did everybody have to conspicuously stand apart from each other? Or something?
No, I mean, you've got a bubble, right? But I think.
Oh, they're also doing the NBA bubble. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's very obvious that some of the plot points in the back half of the show were fairly rushed, and characters appear and disappear with fairly little fanfare, and a lot of dramatic stuff happens very fast, which isn't necessarily a terribly bad thing because Kamen Rider can be occasionally a bit chunkily paced, but there's definitely a feeling that they had to cram a lot of stuff into a few episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have to cut 6 episodes, that's pretty significant.
Yeah.
So
right, my understanding is they were doing.
I mean, it's kind of impressive.
They were doing rewrites pretty close to the end.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, it's kind of impressive that they managed to pull off something pretty decent.
I mean, the thing I will say is, I think it works because the finale they choose to go for is not necessarily a plot-oriented finale, it's more a character finale, if that makes sense. They focus on the individual characters and, a more emotional approach to the storytelling, and I think that works really well.
Okay.
I think, I mean, look, Kamen Rider is the kids' show of kids' shows, it's not that deep, bro, but, they had some interesting things to say about revenge and the nature of what pursuing revenge does to you, and I think that I was really pleased that the ending is the main character getting himself out of trouble and coming to that realization himself rather than being saved by the new toy of the day or anything like that. And there were some genuinely shocking twists along the way and some really fantastic moments. And I think, that's what you get if you write good characters, is you can sort of lean on them for a finale that doesn't necessarily work particularly well as a plot conclusion, but it feels right.
So it's not like they beat the big bad guy at the end or something. It's more of a you've killed your inner demons.
They kind of beat the big bad guy a few episodes ago.
Yeah, that was like one of the most interesting things about it. Was basically they beat the big bad guy, and then he like turned into like the hate plague, if that makes sense. And so like there was a brief period there where it looked like the hero was going to be the big bad guy, and and obviously it didn't end up that way, but again, they did a good job of explaining, like, there was very much a whole, the whole, as long as there is evil, I will exist stuff going on.
Right. The fight continues.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
And I will say that part of the ending of this show is a a very blatant setup for a sequel movie that's going to happen, in a couple of months.
I was literally about to say, like, anything that got written out because they lost 6 episodes, is that just stuff that's going to come back in the inevitable movie when the quarantine hopefully ends?
The scope of this makes it seem like it's not something that they could have done in the show itself, no matter how many episodes they had, because they literally introduce a new bad guy who screams movie-exclusive character all over him.
Oh, well, when you do that, I guess.
Yeah. But, like thematically, I think this... Like, that movie will be fine, but, like, Kamen Rider movies have always been questionably canon to the shows that they're based on anyway, so it's not really something to worry about.
Right. Just like anime.
Yeah,
Right.
Well, but what about the inevitable crossover appearances? How canon are those?
Like, the crossover appearances are the movies, so...
okay.
So, like, I think that, like I said, I think that the most important thing they did was that they made this conclusion feel right. They made it satisfying on an emotional level, and I think I think that's no mean feat. To write a 46 episode show, that is mostly about selling toys and still make you care about the characters and care about what happens to them is a decent achievement. And I think, like I said, this is the best it's been in a while.
Yeah. I will shout out specifically that they did not bring a dead character back to life at the end.
At least not.
I mean, they build a new one, but they also explicitly show that it's not the same person.
Yes, which is kind of a big deal because people don't die in kids shows too often, and I think, like I said, I think that they did a good job of making the main character winning feel earned, and I think it is messy. I think the whole show has been messy. I think there's definitely, I would have liked to see more definitive fates for quite a few of the non-main characters who just kind of stop appearing at some point. Yeah. But it delivered the goods where it counted. Put it that way.
Right. Okay. Well. When's the next one?
Next week.
Christ.
do we know what it is?
It is called Kamen Rider Saber, and like it follows the fairly standard pattern, which is after a technological one, they tend to go towards like a more magic, mystical orientated one.
Right.
But also,
what's the hook? He has a sword.
He has a sword. Yeah.
I heard like something about like dads or something. Like what's?
I've deliberately been not reading the spoilers, but...
Do you mean for Saber or for Zero-One?
For Saber.
That's... Dads? Okay. I don't know.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Like, I'm not...
I guess I briefly saw something along the lines of Dad Writer, like, trending on JP Twitter, but that's... I didn't pay that close attention, so I don't know if that was like maybe a reference to...
The main character's father does show up in the final episode of Zero-One. But, like...
Is he also a writer?
Yes.
Okay, maybe
it's complicated.
There are multiple dad writers in Zero-One.
Yes.
Alright, I was just like, what the hell was that about?
Yeah, that could also be a reference to Hirobi, who's another one of the characters. But, I would say that this is the best Kamen Rider since Kamen Rider Gaim, and that was 7 years ago. So they've not exactly covered themselves with glory in the years since.
Let me tell you, as someone who also follows a long-running franchise, if I got one good entry every 7 years, I'd be fairly satisfied.
You just said Reco was like
2014,
2014, so...
Yes, you guys are due.
So I'm due.
Hopefully, Re-Rise was not the one.
Re-Rise better not have been the one.
Yeah, one.
All I will say is that I was not tremendously enthused
Yeah.
by that Kamen Rider Saber trailer, and I don't think you were either,
No.
right?
Definitely not.
But
Well, statistical odds are not in the favor of it being good.
But
But
also, you know, Kamen Rider shows are so genericized that it can be tough to actually tell the actual character of one until we're several episodes in. Because,
Right.
like, you know, like the 3-episode rule for 26-episode shows and stuff, because this is a full 50-episode show, and a show that is so strictly formula for, like, the first dozen or so episodes, it can be hard to tell. So I'm going in with an open mind, but I'm not necessarily optimistic.
all right.
But obviously, I will
Well-
report on the next episode.
Yeah, we will check back in on that then. Okay, well, I think that's gonna do it for this episode. We went a little long, sorry guys, but we got in what we had to get in there. So get to our housekeeping. You can check us out at theglorioblog.com. Follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, and YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, leave a review, etc., etc. Smash that notification bell. Ring the notification bell? I don't know. Again, I'm old. And that's going to do it. So we'll see everybody next time.